A few weeks ago, on the very rare occasion that I have a heart, I decided to take part in some corporate social responsibility with a company that I'm currently working for. So what we did was we tied closely with one of the soup kitchens in KL, Kachara Soup Kitchen. I'm sure most of you have heard of it. And but we did something different. We didn't wait for people to come to the streets, because a big part of the poor in Kuala Lumpur are invisible. They are the extreme poor that are living in the cities and they have dependents. So they can't travel out to the city to get the free food. So what we did was we had to bring food and supplies to them. And it was very interesting because to the place that we went, it was called Jinjang Selatan. It's somewhere in Cheras-ish. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. To get to the houses, we got to Jinjang Selatan at about like 5, but to get into another, just a mere 5 kilometers, took us about half an hour to 45 minutes. And when we got there, it was just rows and rows of houses that were ill-equipped. They all had astro satellites. And they didn't have any gates. It was really dangerous, and people were walking around with barely any clothes on. And it was very interesting because they all had a beautifully perfect view of our Menara Twin Towers. And it was very interesting because, and when we had the hopes and dreams of Wawasan 2020, and we made such a big deal about economic growth, and we prided ourselves around the existence of the Twin Towers, we failed to see that it casted a huge shadow upon people that were left behind. And that's what Mayor as well as Jason were trying to tell you today. That it is not easy for a vast amount of people that this team assumes opportunities will be given to. So, who do we protect? That will be my first question. What will companies do? So it was strange that the first speaker on the other side said, oh, a lot of companies will go to Vietnam, they have better rice and like it's cheaper labor and stuff like that. Firstly, we think Vietnam should do this too. I think they should also protect and defend social inequalities as opposed to defending their top. But the second thing is, we would say, may I give you quite a number of reasons why there's a first mover advantage. It is literally horrible strategy for you to not invest in a country where you have relatively calm and like diverse, a melting pot of capital as well as human labor that you can use. And it's great. And I don't think the examples of IBM were tackled very well with the speaker before me. So have a seat. But there's one very important question that we must ask in this issue. What do the companies look like on their side? Because if you listen very carefully to the first speaker, he says we should reduce tariffs, no taxes, possibly no minimum wage because that's better for our companies. I don't know who they want to defend on their side, but it looks like a lot of people that barely have any idea about their union membership rights, which is horrible in Malaysia, by the way. We have horrible union membership here. On top of that, have a seat. On top of that, they don't want minimum wage because it's better for the companies. So what will companies do? Companies will come in, they'll open up your factories, they'll pay people absolutely abhorrent wages because it's good for the country. Then the question is, what is the benefit you get from that? Because we wanted to know, where will the money go? They suggest trickle-down economics is a real thing. But okay, let's assume it is. Let's assume it is a real thing. In fact, money does go to people that need it the most. We said this is untrue. We said this is untrue because there are mounting amount of evidence of income and wealth inequality in Malaysia. I think if you read the book, you would know, as Dr. Anas also told us earlier, that the qualitative and quantitative data on the research for wealth and income inequality is indisputable. This means that the way we assess whether people are are part of the gap is not just on pre-existing theories, but also new ones. That means there are constantly new ideas as to why people are poor and left out. And all those ideas stem from the inequality of side opposition. The second thing is, what do Malaysians want? Because we heard from the opposition's second speaker that Malaysians want better opportunities, that Malaysians want to get paid higher, and that's why a lot of teachers, according to Felice, go to Singapore. I'm sorry, the first thing I will say is maybe teachers want a better teaching environment. That means we have to make our public schools better, right? And that happens on side government when we prioritize income and education inequality in government. They would give more tax breaks for private and international schools to open up and leave individuals, a vast amount of kids, like 90% of kids, I promise you the number is probably more, cannot afford to go to great universities like this simply because it's too expensive. The teachers should remain and will remain here because we will make our schools much better. Go.
So if you don't want foreign direct investments, you don't want private firms, and you don't want companies, where do you get the money to make these magnificent schools you speak of?
Yes, and I think that was another big misrepresentation. I think you were the one that wanted to correct us and say, oh, companies are not all that bad. And I also think not all companies will leave. And it's also the kinds of companies you want to stay, right? Having a company stay is not a good in and of itself. It's about the quality that the company can provide to you. So you have companies in Malaysia that will constantly keep large pockets of people in a crunch because they know they have no other option. There's no other company to go to. We're the only ones that are here. When we set the standards and we provide for better labor standards, better income distribution, we ensure that companies keep up with those standards. That's when companies that choose to leave will be left, the void that they leave behind will be filled with better companies and better standards. This is exactly why IBM stayed even after your Intel and Microsoft left. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this debate, we accept on side government we have less classy, less privileged, less luxurious facilities and infrastructure, but on a net, a better distribution on average to a vast amount of Malaysians we are happy to propose.